Back to welcoming Councillor Binney to our first Scrutiny Committee meeting. Look forward to your contribution, and just to say a thank you to Councillor Aitchison, who's stepped down. Thank him for his contribution. Is there any apologies?
No, convener, no apologies for today.
No apologies. Is there any declaration of interest? No. Take it to the minute of the meeting held on the 25th of November 2021. Can we agree the minute? Anything arising from the minute? No.
Agreed.
Takes us to agenda item 4, Falkirk Health and Social Care Partnership. I don't know who's leading this. I thought it was going to be Martin Tom, but Gail, is it yourself?
I was going to introduce the paper, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gillian Thompson. I am the Chief Finance Officer for the partnership, presenting the paper today on behalf of Patricia Cassidy. We've been asked to attend this morning to provide an update on the current work of the partnership. And as I say, we've submitted a paper in advance, which gives a flavour of some of the current work that we're undertaking at the moment. And it also touches on our own governance framework in terms of our scrutiny and our monitoring arrangements. I would draw your attention to section 4 of the paper, which sets out the current work of the partnership. And as you can see from the paper, our clear focus has obviously been around our COVID response and recovery. We're continuing to experience significant operational pressure, unprecedented levels of demand and unmet need and staff absence across our whole health and social care system. And we are putting in place a range of actions to address that situation, to improve our resilience and also to increase capacity across the system. And that has been supplemented with additional funding from the Scottish Government in terms of the specific additional costs of COVID, but there's also been significant sums of money allocated in terms of winter pressures, in terms of how we support our services over the winter period. But some of that money is very welcome and actually recurring as well, which allows us to put in place some longer term improvements to increase service capacity. There's a number of other areas of work that we're undertaking at the moment, and the paper refers to our work to support implementation of the Herbert Protocol, which is a key tool to trace missing people with dementia, and we're working alongside our emergency services colleagues in terms of the local introduction of that. Falkirk Health and Social Care Partnership has also recently been subject to a joint inspection of adult support and protection arrangements. This is one of 26 inspections that have actually been carried out across Scotland as part of a 3-year programme during 2020 to 2023. And the inspection is jointly carried out by the Care Inspectorate, Healthcare Improvement Scotland and Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary in Scotland. And that inspection process is to provide assurance that adults at risk of harm in the Falkirk area are supported and protected by the existing national and local arrangements that we have in place. The report was actually published this week. Overall, the report was positive and the Health and Social Care Partnership was commended for our approach to adult support and protection, particularly in relation to our governance framework, our resilience and our collaborative and person-centred approach to adult support and protection. There were 6 areas identified for improvement in the report, and we're working on an action plan to address those at the moment. In terms of section 5 in the report, that refers to our governance framework and our scrutiny and monitoring arrangements. So the Integration Joint Board has its own audit committee and clinical care governance committee, both of which provide annual assurance statements around the work of those groups. We're also required to prepare an annual performance report, and there's an example of the latest performance report included in the papers as an appendix. And there's also regular monitoring and performance reports in terms of key performance indicators and benchmarking that are provided to the Integration Joint Board throughout the year as well. And that covers a wide range of areas from A&E performance in terms of the 4-hour access targets, delayed discharges, adult protection referrals, complaints, staff absence management, and also waiting times for key services. I hope that the paper gives a flavour of the work of the Health and Social Care Partnership at the moment. And in terms of the actual recommendations under section 2, the committee today is asked to note the work of the partnership and also to consider whether a follow-up session would be appropriate at a future committee meeting. And in the meantime, I'm happy to take any questions. I should also have introduced my colleague Gail before I started speaking. Gail is the Head of Integration, so she's joining me today for the report.
Thanks for that, Gillian. Is there any questions? Councillor Binney.
Yeah, I've got a question. It's actually on, I've actually got two questions. It's on page 18 on 4.4. Firstly, I just want to say I take my hat off to all the health and social care staff for their dedication, professionalism and compassion. I want to recognise that, and I'm sure everybody does too. However, at 4.4, it does say staff and carers have been working above and beyond, and in view of the higher staff absence and some staff experience significant longer term health challenges, is this managers' expectations in the sense of their performance, and what tools, resource is in place to support staff and provide them with clear performance expectations to enable them to sustain their own health and well-being? That was my first question.
Thanks. Yeah, I think our staff absolutely should be commended for the work that they've carried out during the pandemic. So I really welcome your comments on that, and I'll make sure that is fed back across the teams. The health and well-being of our workforce is such a high-profile area, and it really has come to the fore as a result of the pandemic. Our staff have gone above and beyond. Absolutely, they continue to do all that they can to provide services. But certainly the health and well-being is something that we're looking at the moment. So we have been provided with additional funding through the Scottish Government, specifically in relation to improving the health and well-being of our workforce. And there's a range of actions that we're taking at the moment, and some of that includes very practical support for staff. So things like providing, places where they can have a coffee, proper break, things like that in the community when they're out and about. But it also includes a range of other tools around mental health and their access to various online resources as well. We also, in terms of that funding, are intending to issue that directly to teams so that they can use it, and we've been asking the staff what would practically support them. So rather than us providing a range of things that actually won't help, we want to get their views. Gail, I don't know if you would want to add anything else.
Yeah, just to build on what you said, Gillian. So I think that it's been unprecedented what the staff have gone through. They've gone absolutely above and beyond under really difficult circumstances. So the challenges that everybody's felt from a personal perspective, all of our staff have obviously had that, and they've also experienced the significant challenges to the people that they're providing care to. At the same time, in terms of the increased absences due to sickness absence and also due to COVID isolation, has put additional pressure onto the services. So it's a real testament to the staff and how much they care about the people they look after, that they've continued to provide those essential services, albeit in extremely challenging situations. So and the increased sickness absence we've seen has been at all levels of the organisation. It hasn't just been in particular cohorts, and I think that's evidence of the strain that everybody's been under. So as Gillian said, it's really, really important to us that we do support the wellbeing of our staff, because they are the most important asset of the partnership. So we are very much working with the staff to find out and listen to them about what's important to them. So we did do a survey before Christmas, and key things came out. For example, having time and space to reflect on what they've been through, having people to listen, in terms of having that opportunity to talk to people, and also practical things, as Gillian said, about tea and coffee and things like that. So we will be continuing that, and again, it's that we're taking the person-centred approach we take in terms of supporting people in our communities. We also take that approach in terms of supporting our staff. So what's important to the staff, we have to have the funding that is available. The biggest challenge we have is around the gaps and how we fill that, and obviously that having fewer staff adds to that stress and strain. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And again, there's a number of different pieces of work that we're progressing to help support that area.
With regard to what you're progressing, would it be possible you could maybe come back to the scrutiny, external scrutiny, maybe in about 6 months, and let us know, is that enough time? I mean, I do realise all the pressures your service is under, just to see the work that you're doing with staff that is actually making improvements for them, for their health and well-being, and obviously your sickness absence rates. Would that be okay? Thank you. My second question is on page 22 and it's 5.12. It's the Joint Staff Forum, basically. So what I would like to find out, 5.12 and 5.1, what good practice that has come from the recommendations of this forum, and what has actually been put in place, and how do you measure this with regard improvement, you know, in relation to the Joint Staff Forum and the recommendation? Obviously, it would be to do with the working practices, I would imagine.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just on the paper. Yep. So any actions that are taken forward through that, there would be a formal action plan in place, which would be presented to the senior leadership team of the Health and Social Care Partnership. But there would also be regular update reports to the IJB as well in terms of monitoring progress. So that's the kind of the key governance routes, if you like, around ensuring that any actions identified are taken forward and progressed appropriately.
Yeah, so regarding the outcomes, like from that, so how do you measure that? You know, so if you had a recommendation, you know, from the Joint Staff Forum, you know, in that to change maybe working practices or making other improvements. So how is that measured? Does that actually get measured? You know, if we've got a forum with recommendations, we're going forward with an action plan or improvements, is it measured?
I don't know that it's formally measured, but it certainly should be, and that would apply to any forum, be it joint partnership or any committee. If there is a specific action plan, it's implemented, it's always best practice to then go back and evaluate whether the outcomes were actually being met. But that's certainly something I can take back and put to the joint partnership forum around whether they're actually doing that evaluation piece.
That's great. Thanks very much, Gillian.
Thanks.
Thank you, Convener.
Grant.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Gillian. I'd like to ask a couple of questions as well, and I'd also like to echo Councillor Binney's thank you to your hard work of your staff. Page 19, supporting timely discharge. We obviously seem to rely quite heavily on the volunteer sector for transporting, so I think they should get a thank you as well. How do we go about the recruiting there, especially during the pandemic when people are a bit wary getting into cars and buses, etc., and getting into other people's house? How did that go during the pandemic, and how did we recruit these volunteers to do this marvellous job for us?
Yeah, we should absolutely be thanking our volunteers. I'll let Gail come in this one. She's been involved in some of the specific work around support and discharge.
Yeah, I think key point there. So in terms of the partnership is more than just the staff that are part of the partnership, and the volunteers and the third sector and defence sector organisations are absolutely part of that, and everybody in all of those places play their part in terms of supporting the best outcomes to be delivered. So in terms of the third sector support we have in place in the hospital, that's actually been put in place relatively recently over the last few months. So it's coordinated through link workers who are employed by the third sector, and then those link workers link into a number of different third sector organisations to make sure that they have the right volunteers and support in place to provide the services. So the services include things like transport that you mentioned, includes making sure that when somebody comes home from hospital, they've got what they need to settle in, they've got heating on in the house, they've got some food in the house, and it also includes things like a follow-up call to make sure that they're settling well and they're not having further problems that might need further support. So it's that wraparound which hopefully enables people to come home as smoothly as possible and reduces the chances of that not being a good experience. In terms of the particular question you asked around transport and driving, throughout the whole pandemic there has been clear guidance in terms of how to minimise risks in terms of travelling in cars and various other transport. So everybody, we've also been sharing that guidance and encouraging everybody to comply with that guidance, which has minimised the risks in that situation.
Thank you, Gail. Gillian, could I ask a question on page 24 regarding the external audit recommendations? This is just for my benefit. It's at the bottom, and as an integration authority, the IJB does not directly employ its own staff. The ability to respond to key legislation governance requires therefore relies on the resources from the NHS and Falkirk Council. And so the IJB don't provide their own staff, so it's provided by the council or the NHS. Do the IJB pay for this service?
Yes, they do.
Right,
So
okay.
the IJB controls a budget, and there's funding contributions that are given from Falkirk Council and NHS Forth Valley, and those budgets relate specifically to the services that have been delegated to the IJB to manage. It's a complicated concept in that the IJB gets the budget with the funding contributions from partners. The IJB then decides how that's to be spent in terms of meeting our strategic priorities, and we then pass the funding back to Falkirk Council and Forth Valley to pay for delivery of the service.
Thanks, Joey. Part two of this question. I do understand the pandemic has played havoc in everybody's life and staff's attendance and welfare. If the IJB pay Falkirk Council, for example, for the staff, Falkirk Council are not providing a fantastic service at the moment with that because of staff being off with isolating or the pandemic, etc., etc., etc. Is that worked out how we, the IJB, pay Falkirk Council for so much staff and people don't turn up, etc., etc., etc.? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the budgets that we, the money that we pass back to Falkirk Council will absolutely, it covers a wide range of things, and that would include staff that are directly employed by Falkirk Council. It would also include money that we pay to external providers who provide the service on behalf of the council. So it really depends on the service area, but within that there would always be allowances in the budget for people if they're off sick, for example. COVID is a totally different ballgame given what we're dealing with in the pandemic. So we received additional funding from the Scottish Government to offset all additional costs of the pandemic. So that would include any temporary additional staff costs. For example, if somebody's off, we need to cover that shift to ensure that people continue to get care. So we would have to either through overtime or recruitment to temporary posts or using agencies, for example, to cover it. So the costs, I mean, that alone are significant. There's also obviously the cost of the PPE equipment, infection prevention control type costs. So certainly last financial year it was 8.7 million, I think from memory, was the cost, additional cost associated with the pandemic, and we're forecasting 8.4 in the current financial year. And again, that's money that's been provided additional over and above the kind of funding contributions we get from partners, but it's absolutely significant costs.
Thanks, Gillian. So if Falkirk Council's staff are off and sick, Falkirk Council would obviously be paying them. That wouldn't be the IJB.
Yeah, and just purely from a payment mechanism, absolutely the employer remains Falkirk Council and they physically make the payments of staff, yeah.
Thanks, Convener.
Thanks, Councillor Grant. Councillor Balfour.
Thanks, Convener. Just a couple of quick questions, really. Page 70, it's got a bit there about health inequalities. It said that the health inequalities in Falkirk not only exist, they're widening. That's a bit worrying. Has there been any work done on the causes of that? Has there been any changes to the causes, like due to the pandemic or anything like that? And what are you doing to try and counteract that increase?
I think nationally there has been some work on this, which has demonstrated that health inequalities have widened as a result of the pandemic. It's absolutely had an impact. In terms of the local analysis, that's something that we will do well when we're about to refresh our new three-year strategic plan. So we undertake a needs assessment, and as part of that, health equalities, but it hasn't been updated as yet, but it will be. We're also, in terms of our senior leadership team this week, actually, tomorrow, about to take a paper there where specific funding has been identified to address health inequalities locally. So we will be launching that in the new financial year, and it will be a grant type process for organisations to come forward with particular community projects to directly address health inequalities. I don't know, Gail, if there's anything you want to add around that.
Yeah, just in terms of COVID being a key driver for increasing health inequalities, certainly there's a lot of evidence early on in the pandemic that people from higher socioeconomic deprivation areas were more likely to get COVID. It was more difficult for them to take some of the protective measures such as isolation, etc. And they might have been more impacted in terms of those wider implications around employment and things like that. So there's, COVID has been a direct contributor to health inequalities, and I suppose our focus as we move forward and as hopefully we start to emerge from the pandemic needs to be about how we reduce the inequalities and improve health and wellbeing outcomes for everybody as we move forward. But that's not going to be an easy thing to achieve, and it will require a cross-system approach to achieve as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Do we have any kind of timescales on when we might be able to start reversing that increase? I know that's a very difficult, how long's a bit of string question, but just if you had any kind of idea.
No immediate idea. However, our 3-year strategic plan is effectively that 3-year period. So I would have thought it would be within the bounds of that we would absolutely be wanting to target that within the period of the next 3 years.
Okay. Right. I've just got another wee question. Page 120. It's the bit about the hoarding disorder. It says that the training's been developed and they'll be getting rolled out in the autumn of 2021. How has that training gone, and what kind of improvements have we seen on that issue?
Which section in the report is that in?
Well, there's 2 numbers there. It's in our partnership. It's got 57, page 57, but at the bottom it's got page 120. I don't know what paper you've got.
I haven't got page numbers in mine, helpfully.
All right. Let me see.
It's in the annual report.
It's under the Alcohol and Drug Partnership.
Is it in the annual report?
Supporting people affected by hoarding disorder.
I would have to take that back to the team to get an answer on that particular question for you and come back to you.
All right. Well, I was also wondering if training was getting done in sort of autumn 2021, what approach was taken before that, if any? And has there also been an increase in that issue due to COVID? Has that made that disorder any worse, if you like? So.
Yep, I'll take that back as well.
Okay. All right. That's all just now. Thanks.
McLaughlin.
Thanks, convener. My question refers to page 28 on the pages you've no got. Overdue pending OT assessments. Now, we stressed there, or you stressed that there's we've got a 10% people off, but you say we get money to assist with overtime and relief. But 35%, a third rise on assessments not been done in time, is a huge number. And obviously I would like to ken why that has shot up. And obviously the original times in waiting for OT assessments were always high before. So going, 35% more is out with time is very stressful to the people who are waiting on assessments. So if you could answer me that, please.
Absolutely, it's a huge increase, which I would suggest has been as a result of the pandemic and the impact that's had across waiting times. Absolutely, it is a key area that obviously we need to look at in terms of those people that are still waiting. Gail, do you have anything to add around this?
Yeah, just to say, so absolutely, the COVID pandemic has had a huge impact, as Gillian says. In terms of what actions we're taking, we have this is nationally, not just within Falkirk, there's a real shortage in terms of getting in OTs to increase the number of assessments. So it's something that we're actively working on, but we are challenged in terms of getting appropriately trained staff to do the assessments.
My question obviously isn't it's not just a new thing. You say that it's over COVID related, but prior to COVID, there was times when I think with records the team we had no team and folk were waiting 6 months and a year to get assessed. At previous time in my term in office. So as I say, it's always been a problem, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. So I'm just thinking, what's a long-term plan of trying to resolve this very important issue that I know we move quickly once we assess people, but you know, there's people struggling out there and waiting. If they wait 6 months to get assessed, I mean, that's a long time to be struggling.
Yeah, but absolutely is, and I think it's something that we will need to incorporate within our integrated workforce plan around how we attract and retain qualified OTs. Absolutely, there is an issue in terms of being able to recruit OTs, as Gail said, so it does have a massive impact on the service.
My other point is on the drug and alcohol dependency, and as I say, I visited the clinics here, they excellent work. However, one of the things about getting into recovery is to try to distance yourself from other users, and it's came quite clear, I mentioned this before, that people are concerned that if you're in a homeless unit where everybody else is using, it's very difficult to get on with your recovery, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of backbone to make that step to focus on recovery. So if any plans of doing, I've raised it before, but it doesn't seem to have moved, is a kind of halfway house or other type of support where people who are on proven programs, attending clinics and proving they're abstaining, get more assistance to stop them going back mixing from with other users. So that would help them, but is there any long-term plans of that?
Again, I'll take that one back to the alcohol and drug partnership in terms of the support that would be available for people in that situation, because you raised some very valid points around, you know, that temptation against that can be increased depending on their personal circumstances and where they're living with other people. We do obviously have specific kind of residential type services for alcohol and drug use. As I say, that we have a budget. There's additional funding provided by Scottish Government specifically for those services to kind of take people out and deal with them separately. So I'll take that one back to the Alcohol and Drug Partnership and can come back to you with an update on that.
Could you check how many places? My belief was there was only one place associated to support that. So, but if we could just check the beds in relation to that too, please.
Certainly.
But these questions are coming from the some for the constituents, the people who attend. So that's why I'm asking. We have to be seen, and it's important we're seen to be supporting everybody in society, whether you got addiction or no. People didn't intend to have addictions. It's something that, as I say, you develop through no fault of your own. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are you, Councillor McCluggey? Anybody else got a question or ask a couple? Gillian, could I ask a question on page 17, 4.3, bullet point 4? There's been an increase in demand for packages of care with a waiting list. Could I ask how we prioritise these clients and what happens to the people on waiting list? They get no care at all.
I'll let Gail come in on that one.
Yeah, so we prioritise people as urgent and non-urgent in terms of people who are waiting for packages of care. In addition, that we prioritise people who are waiting to come out of hospital, because obviously they will deteriorate the longer they're in hospital. So the quicker that we can support them to come out of hospital with packages of care will reduce their negative consequences. So the people who we are unable to provide support to don't get any support. We do have a programme to reassess in terms of making sure that we have identified people in the right category in terms of urgent and non-urgent, but certainly the unmet demand at the moment is really, really high. We are starting to see some green shoots in terms of our staffing levels being slightly better than they have been over the last few months, and that will help us start to make an impact. But the level of unmet demand is really significant, and I think we did a calculation, it would take the equivalent of over 70 full-time equivalent staff in order to meet that at the moment. So, and we're not, we're not people are not applying to come into provision of care at home at the moment. We're not seeing an increase in recruitment, and that's not just within the council and the partnership, but also with our providers as well, and that's reflected nationally.
That was very much question. The last bullet point saying provider organisations are handing back packages, so that's going to put a further burden in the service. Yeah.
Yeah. So we certainly, on the run up to Christmas, we did regularly experience care providers who were unable to continue to provide care to those people that they were currently providing care, and they were handing back packages. That position, touch wood, is slightly better at the moment. We haven't seen any packages handed back or any conversations about that for the last few weeks. And I think that will be reflective of the providers also seeing here a decrease of staff isolation and absence. So we're hopeful that those green shoots will continue, but it's obviously very difficult to tell what might happen in the future in relation to COVID and other challenges that we're facing.
Okay. Other questions in 4.8, bed-based care. We increased the number of beds in Ward 5 at Falkirk and the Bowness Community Hospital. I take it this is to take this relief beds at the Forth Valley Hospital. How much further is this going to expand? Because it seems to be it's an expanding scenario down at the Falkirk Community Hospital.
Yes, we know that when people are clinically well, being in an acute hospital is not the best place to be and doesn't lead to good outcomes for people. So it's appropriate that they would go into somewhere that would be better for them. Some people are obviously waiting to go home with packages of care. We have increased to a small degree the number of beds in our community hospitals, and in addition we have block purchased and spot purchased interim beds and intermediate beds in some of our care homes, and that allows people to be in a more appropriate homely environment where they can get rehabilitation and reablement support, and hopefully that will help them on their journey, hopefully back home or to long-term care, depending on what's more suitable for each person. So it's really around making sure that we have capacity in our acute hospital to allow for people who need that acute care to have that care in the right place, and also to minimise the negative impacts for people staying in acute hospital longer than they clinically need to do so.
If you're increasing beds, you don't have to increase staff. And where do you pull the staff from?
Yes, so there are staffing implications. However, it's about where we can efficiently provide the care with the available staff resource. And so we have staff requirements, whether that be in an acute hospital, in a community hospital, in an interim or intermediate care bed, or in terms of packages of care. So we need to carefully monitor that to make sure we're able to safely provide the services with the available staffing that we have.
Thank you.
The specific beds in Falkirk and Bowness, the specific beds and that within the existing staffing. But if we were increasing that, 10 times, more beds, absolutely, you would need to have the staff in place. In terms of the spot purchase and the block purchase, the beds, obviously it would be the providers and the operators of the care homes that would be providing staff for that, and there is vacancies within our care homes at the moment, which is obviously why they've been able to help support that as well.
Thank you. Katie McCluckie, your hand up again.
It was just to add on a question that you said in relating to recruitment for care staff, and obviously it's been explained how many we need and the difficulties we've got in trying to get them. But when you turn on the TV, you get advertisements here, Glasgow Health Care Services looking for long-term staff. Look at the future you can have in the care service in Glasgow, and go watch TV. And I've not seen one coming on for saying the care service in the Forth Valley or Falkirk. And I was just wondering if we've got any plans for that, because that other one definitely strikes me in the mind. And it just seems that if that's getting through to people and getting out there, it's a good way of advertising. Certainly Glasgow thinks so, and as I say, because I don't know how many of the rest of us on the call have heard that advertisement on the TV, but it just seems to be strange that we don't do something similar. Thank you.
Yep, we are looking at that, and I've certainly seen the advert that you're referring to. I think Glasgow have ran that campaign a couple of times, and the first time they did it, I understand it was really successful. I don't know if they've had the same success with this particular campaign, but certainly we are considering better and I guess more different ways of advertising rather than our traditional routes. So not just in terms of TV adverts, in terms of recruitment, we would normally go through the My Job Scotland website and people would be recruited through that, but we are now looking at social media and trying to get the word out around the post and kind of spreading that word in slightly different ways. So yeah, absolutely, we are considering the TV advert.
Okay.
Councillor Binney, then Councillor Grant.
Thank you, convener. I wanted just a wee quick question. I wanted to understand it a little bit better, and it's on 4.12. And I totally understand a lot of people they want to remain at home when they get older, you know, rather than going into a home and that. And I think that has been looked into, and that is really best for people in a lot of circumstances. But what I want to find out, you said throughout the pandemic, we've been able to sustain our core services through care at home, community care team, and the MECs. Actually, I was involved with a wee pilot with the digital MECs. And what I want to find out from our service point of view and from our improvements and our practice and the benefits, improvements for people in the community, is the digital MECs, is it fully being rolled out? You know, is it advanced? Because I remember when I was in the pilot, it had so many functions that it could be aware of people falling and things like that. So I wasn't quite sure if that was fully rolled out with the functions that it had. And if it has, have you seen a lot of improvements with regard to your service? And is that being measured as opposed to the old sort of MECs process that we had?
In terms of the analogue to digital transition, if you like, that has been rolled out, I understand, to all service users in Falkirk, and Falkirk is the first local authority area in Scotland to have gone digital. Right. So absolutely, that's been rolled out. I'm not entirely sure about the full spectrum of functionality within the system. You referred to the different aspects. So again, I can pick that back up with the MECs team, but there's real potential around the use of telecare and technology enabled care. Absolutely, we have appointed a technology enabled care lead for the partnership now, and he's taking forward some really exciting work as well. So again, that might be something that the committee would be interested in hearing an update about as well.
Absolutely, because when I was involved in the pilot, I remember the functionality of it could do a lot more. But in relation, in terms of like the service we provide, you know, is that being measured? I mean, I know so many things have happened and perhaps we haven't really got to that. Like, you know, it's been measured to see the improvements and the resource, you know, being more efficient and things like that. So it was to find that out, you know, we're saying we've rolled out the digital, and I totally believe it's a winner. You see, it's a first in Scotland actually, and I believe other councils are looking into it as well, because the innovation there is so great. But it's to measure that, you know, we see that's happening and we believe it's good, but do we have the evidence that, you know, is really making, apart from hearsay, you know, do we have that measure in place that it's making a difference for Falkirk Council? So really, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the staff in the Alarm Receiving Centre collect a wide range of performance measures and indicators around the calls and the alarms and what's going off when. So absolutely, there is information that's collated certainly for the Falkirk area. As I say, it might be something we could bring an update back to the.
Well, that would be great. Thanks very much, Gillian. That would be super.
Grant.
Thank you, convener. Hello again, Gillian. I'd just like to go to page 188, if you've got that, Gillian. It's to do with the complaint types in the category. understand the size of the NHS, etc., we're going to get complaints. But what I noticed with table 3 is that the same type of complaint keeps reoccurring. Do you know if this has been addressed? There's a reason for this same type of complaint keeps going up.
I haven't got the specific table in front of me on this paper. What is the?
It's table 3. I don't know if Gail's got it. It's from April, May, June, and August, and the same staff attitude and behaviour comes up in every one of them. I don't know if Gail's got that table.
Yeah, I've got that table in front of me. I think, again, going forward, I think that's really important to recognise patterns and think about what we need to do to support those to be addressed. In terms of, I think this is quite representative of what would be seen in other NHS environments in terms of the sort of pattern of complaints. It does tend to be, a number of complaints about staff attitude, quite a common thing to raise. But I think it's really valid to highlight that, and I think as we go forward, linking that into our workforce plan, linking that into our strategy, we absolutely need to think about what support we can provide to make sure that staff come across in the right way, recognising that when people are going through really difficult situations, sometimes nothing can be said that would be the right thing to say in those circumstances.
Thank you, Gail and Gillian. I do understand that, Gail, that the patients that are going through difficult circumstances. I do get that, that they're hitting out. Can't give them the right answer or the answer they want. I do understand that, but I've just thought I'd ask the question because it comes up every table. Thank you. Thanks, Camilla.
Are there any further questions? No. Take to the recommendation on page 16. Sorry. Note the report and progress by the HSCP in meeting its priorities in the strategic plan. And I think we've been requested a couple of follow-ups to the next Scrutiny Committee. Right, Brian.
Thanks, Convener. I note at the start of the discussion there was a report called back. I think Councillor Binney asked for a report in 6 months. I think just mindful of the local government elections and the new timetable will come in, probably there won't be a Scrutiny Committee in 6 months, but there will be one September, October, November, and that would be around about the time we ask our health board colleagues to come back anyway with the annual performance plan. So perhaps rather than asking for a separate report, this could all just be bundled into the standard report that comes to the committee. That be acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're going to thank Gillian and Gail for their contribution today. It's most welcome. And before we close the meeting, this was obviously the final meeting of this committee in this electoral period. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the councillors who have participated in the meetings over the years. Thank them for their support. I'd also like to thank Brian Perry and Sophie Dick for their support to the committee and their officer roles. Thank you. So I can close the meeting. Thank you all for attending.
And thanks to Kabira.
Okay, thank you.